All right, well, let's go ahead and jump in. So I'll welcome to today's webinar, Human Resources Visualized, Driving Business Insight with Redshift and Oracle, as we near the end of our series with AWS, A Modern BI Journey. I'm Audrey Eloquin, AWS Alliance Manager at Apps Associates, and I'm very fortunate to be joined today by Srinivas Pathareddy, VP of Analytics, and Praveen Sharuvu, our Director of Analytics here at Apps Associates. So to all that are tuning in, thank you for joining us today. Similar to last week, I'd like to walk through a few house rules. Our session is being recorded and your lines are currently on mute, although questions are encouraged. They can be submitted through the chat feature within Zoom throughout today's session, and we will either touch on them as we go or collect them and devote them to the end of this session, time permitting. And so again, we thank you for joining, and I'd like to go ahead and introduce from an agenda standpoint Srinivas to highlight what to expect for this session. And then after he introduces us and walks through some of the generalities of human resources and how we can take advantage of them from a more business standpoint, then we'll also dive into a bit more of a hands-on approach with Praveen. So Srinivas, Praveen, over to you, and thank you so much for kicking us off.
Thanks, Audrey. This is Srinivas Pathareddy from Apps Associates. So today the focus of the session is going to delve into a few use cases related to human capital management. But before we get into it, I just want to walk through a brief agenda of today's discussion. So we'll start with a brief introduction to Apps Associates. We'll talk about some of the general challenges that most organizations are facing in this space, in the human capital management space. And then we'll look at some of the standard reporting that's available with Oracle applications, whether it is Oracle E-Business Suite or cloud applications. We'll look at the standard reports, talk about some limitations there. And then we'll jump into a few use cases, solutions that we have seen to be useful that we've been working on. And then using those use cases, we'll take one of them and talk about an approach for data analytics, and then show how we can use Amazon Redshift and AWS QuickSight in order to kind of extract data, load into Redshift, and build reports using QuickSight. So we'll kind of take a use case and build a dashboard with QuickSight. So that's going to be our agenda for today. So let me jump straight in. Quick introduction to Apps Associates. Apps Associates was founded in 2002, headquarters in Acton, Massachusetts. We have locations, multiple locations in the US and Europe, including India. And there are 300 active customers across the different regions with around 900 full-time employees supporting these customers. And then we are very specialized in implementing business applications for our customers in the Oracle Salesforce ecosystem, followed by integration between these different business applications, whether it is between Salesforce, Oracle, then analytics, developing enterprise warehouses, analytical solutions, whether it is warehouses or data lakes for customers, end-to-end reporting and visualization, and then followed by cloud managed applications and application services and infrastructure managed services. These are meant to provide support on a monthly basis so that the infrastructure and the applications run smoothly. Now, as I mentioned about our background, the focus has been on Oracle applications, whether it is Oracle E-Business Suite or Oracle Cloud applications. And the reason we're talking about this is because we have been working with Oracle applications for a number of years and have been implementing these solutions for the last 15 plus years. And then as a result, we have implemented, and we're kind of pretty good at implementing and have developed expertise in implementing ERP systems, supply chain, human capital, EPM systems. And that information has helped the team, the analytics team here at Apps Associates, develop knowledge on the business process, the data that is needed in order to build enterprise solutions for our customers on their warehousing and the reporting side. And so we take that experience, and our customers have benefited out of our experience using the business knowledge, and has made it much efficient for us to work with our customers. So taking this background into account, I want to talk about human capital management what are some of the challenges that organizations are facing, and what are the limitations. We'll start with limitations that users encounter using Oracle applications from data perspective, and then, as I mentioned, talk about potential solutions. So diving into the problem statement or what the challenges are. So there are multiple levels of challenges. If you look at it, we have a macro environment level challenges, which are affecting almost everyone, whether it is in this country or globally. And then challenges that individual organizations are facing, most organizations would face, and then at the individual level. So the macroeconomic level, I mean, if you look at the skills that we have, the skills shortage that we encounter, I mean, the in nature of our industries, whether it is in the technology, the business applications that we're using to run a business, or even the technology that we use at home, or whether it is when you look at in the area of science and medicine, or even automotive, the way things are changing, new technology with respect to automotive, whether it is electric cars, and even pharmaceuticals and medicine, which with the research and the changes in the nature of disease and the cures that are being worked on. So with continuous change in technology and science, it becomes very important that we have the right skills, and this is a constant challenge that most organizations face today. And then on top of it, you have globalization, which is affecting goods and services are being shipped across the globe. And as a result, the nature of industries that we're working on changes. So industries that were present today are no longer here, or industries that are no longer here are coming back. So the level of resource, the skills, the type of workforce that we need is also constantly changing. And organizations have to be aware of it in order to meet their needs. Workforce diversity is a very hot topic in today's environment, and there are benefits with respect to whether it is productivity, whether it's coming up with new ideas, and that's a hot topic that everyone is feeling around here. And then followed by legislation not only with respect to hiring, but legislation with respect to goods and services that are kind of shipped or serviced across countries, and how they're impacted with legislation. So all of these are important factors that affect the workforce that support these industries. Now, at the organization level, if you look at it, technology that was, if you look at it a few decades back, I mean, we had very minimal technology to support HR activities. And now we have more automation. If you recruitment, a lot of recruitment activities have been significantly automated with advanced data science, and then more and more automation is still in the process in this area. And then outsourcing is a constant challenge as far as whether you want to how many resources do you want to hire in-house versus how much of work do you want to outsource, and that's a constant challenge, taking cost into account, and also the availability of skills that you can hire and maintain within the organization. The cost to hire and retain, it's a constant. It's not easy to retain employees. It takes work, and then the hiring process also has become very challenging, especially taking into account the competitive nature of hiring, because especially with skilled resources, that means you have to, I mean, you're hiring resources from other companies, and so there is a competition with respect to staffing, and it's at the global level right now. And then on an individual scale, if you look at it, individuals have to be measured, are already being measured on productivity, and and then they're being provided options for their career growth development. Plans are being created, and they're being measured more from whether it's with respect to compensation, whether it is with respect to how important they are to retain for a company, so that you don't lose the skill and knowledge that the resource have. So all of these at different levels, there are challenges in this area, and then obviously there are a lot of different business applications and modules within Oracle application space that support these functions, right? So let's look at some of that and see what kind of information is available within the different areas, business applications within Oracle Human Capital Management. Now, just before I jump into the general modules, right? Now, there's some of the limitations that we have seen over the years working with data from Oracle ERP systems is, I mean, there is a lot of information that is captured, but then the ability to analyze data is limited, right? The flexibility to is limited. You have to, in some cases, you have to extract manual data sets and combine them into for meaningful results, right? And so as a result, your ability to identify specific issues or identify areas of improvement or to take significant action is limited. Now, looking at some of the going into some of the details for the kind of information that is maintained in ERP systems. So we'll start with on the human resources side, which is the core human resources, where I mean we track headcount trends, terminations, turnover analysis, people joining, leaving, diversity, and then like whether it is diversity, and then promotions by grade, gender, and then other factors. So all of these are important metrics or sets of information that is available that help us derive these metrics, and this is useful information that is available. So, and on the recruitment side, you have requisitions that are put in. You have information about how many recs are open, how many positions are fulfilled, how many are open that have still not been fulfilled, the time it's taking to hire, the sources that you're kind of engaging to hire the resources. So all of the, I mean, it's valuable information that is maintained in our ERP system with respect to hiring and headcount maintenance. And on the compensation and the career development side, we have the comp ratio, which is identifying where the employee stands with the salary compared to the range that is the range that is defined in the market, was available in the market. Then and then the salary changes in salary adjustments, stocks, and all of these things, which are really important. Are, I mean, in some cases, payroll is also driven from this information, but this information, as far as it relates to challenges with hiring, is important, and it's related to is related to the retaining plans that you have that is maintained by the organization, and overall headcount and terminations as well. Now, on the career side, there's functionality to create development goals, perform ratings quarterly or semi-annually or annually, and then as part of that, identify the risk to your talent that might leave the organization, or identify talent that you would like to stay in the organization. So there is a lot of information that's available. A lot of them is good information, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the key things is all this is being taken to the next level with respect to the technology that's available. And I just wanted to kind of talk about the next stages, in the sense how this information can be taken to the next level with especially with cross-functional reporting, information that can be combined with external data sources, whether it is social media or such as LinkedIn or other sources, and together come up with meaningful results that can help the organization. So next, we look at some of the solutions that we think are useful. Now, insights into human capital management, right? Now, we talked about some of these metrics, whether it is vacancy or employee risk, and then trend, overall turnover trend that we have within the organization. As you can see, I mean, there are different applications, and all of them are tied very closely together. But then looking at these metrics individually gives us limited results. Now, if I look at if I just want to take one example and see the hiring costs and the sourcing and the hiring costs that an organization has to spend or they have to budget for. I mean, it depends on other factors. It depends on the risk that we see in our employees, the productivity that we see in our employees, and then the potential talent that we see in our employees. I mean, all of this ties into, I mean, the overall cost that we have to spend with respect to hiring and sourcing in order to make sure that if any of these changes, then it has a direct impact into our sourcing and hiring costs. And then that's just one example, but the other bigger factor is now the nature of analysis is cannot be limited to the current set of data. Like I mean, we cannot be limited to the vacancy that we see at the current location or currently that we have in the department, or we cannot be limited by the risk that we see to our employees right now and take action. We have to look at this data set holistically and look at information that is maintained. Like say if it is an organization that has been around for like say 10, 15 years or even 20 years, we have to take a look at this information that has been in the organization, in our systems for the last 10, 20 years and apply analysis on top of historical data, come up with trends that help us more with identifying patterns, applying algorithms on this historical data, so that we can be more proactive, and help retain, whether it is if it means retaining our employees or reducing our hiring costs or reducing our overall turnover, right? So overall, if you look at it, it takes a lot of analysis that would need to happen in order for this to work. Now, going further with respect to the specific use cases that we focus on. So if I look at if I want to focus on as a solution, right? If I want to focus on the forecasting my employee turnover, so there are a number of different factors that considerations that I have to keep in mind in order to calculate my employee turnover. If I have to forecast that, right, I have to consider the age and tenure of the employees. I have to consider when were they last promoted, the performance rating over the years, their salary compensation benefits that they have been receiving over the years, tasks, and then and productivity essentially. How productive have they been? Whether it is the rate, not only the ratings, but also with respect to getting tasks completed in a given period. So together, these are some of the high-level factors that have to be considered. But there are a lot of other software factors also that may go into play in order to apply logic in order to calculate what is the risk for an employee. So assigning a risk to an employee to identify where he stands with respect to his, whether it is satisfaction or the risk of leaving, right? So, and then if you look at retaining talent, I think every organization, I mean, is focused on retaining talent. They don't want to lose the knowledge that the employees have learned over the years, that they are able to contribute, and that it makes them much more productive with the years of experience that they have accumulated, and then this also requires looking at historical data, not just current information, but it involves looking at data that has some of the programs that have been in place, development programs to help employees, and also compensation packages that are meant to incentivize employees have been in place for the last maybe few years. So it's important to look at a lot of information for the last few years to come up with a pattern to apply analytics on top of it in order to identify what is really working, or what formulas help in retaining employees, right? And how do you make sure that the most productive employees within the organization remain within the organization and don't leave, right? So ultimately, and then that is applicable not only I mean, that's definitely important for individual functions, but it's important to measure them across like age, diversity groups, locations. You want to make sure that that uniformity is maintained when you retain the talent. And then finally, when it comes to hiring, I mean, how do we hire candidates that are more likely to stay rather than candidates that are kind of more in a fleeting nature? So, so hiring is definitely is not easy, and there are a lot of solutions out there in the market. But then you want to look at your organization. You want to look at the data that you have collected, and apply logic to it to understand. I mean, are employees sticking around from a certain educational background or certain colleges versus other colleges, or they have certain priorities as far as the career priorities are concerned. So I mean, a lot of factors to decide in order to identify candidates that are more likely to stay versus other candidates, right? And then one other factor which really kind of affects the bottom line is the overall cost of sourcing and hiring as a quality, right? And then these factors that I mentioned with respect to whether it is the kind of education or the background, I think also affects the quality of hire, and directly impacts the constant turnover that results out of it, and also the knowledge that that employees can gain or be productive over the years. And then finally, where do we draw the balance between recruitment and retention, right? I mean, is it always is retention always a priority versus recruitment? Obviously, there are industries where, I mean, you need fresh talent, or you need more recruitment than retention. I mean, skills that, as I mentioned in the beginning, I mean, the nature of the businesses are changing, whether it's technology or science. So you need people that that are more that have more talent in these areas. But that doesn't mean that and you don't retain people. So so where do you draw the balance? And it depends obviously on the nature. So all of these factors are important in driving hiring decisions, right? So taking a look at these business use cases, right? We want to go to the next step of identifying how do we take one example from here, and then like maybe the first one, and then put in a data set, collect data information from applications, from sources, and use the AWS framework, load data into Redshift, and build reports using QuickSight, right? So next we'll take this next step of understanding what our process is going to be, how we extract information from our source system, and then we'll follow that with the demo. So if you look at the approach for data analytics, right, we've focused on using extracting information from different applications into our AWS ecosystem. In this case, if you look at it, there are multiple components to it. We extract detailed information from our source systems, and all of this detailed information is stored in our what we call the staging area, or the raw bucket. And this helps primarily to make sure that information from all different systems is consolidated. And next, we curate all this information at the detail level, still keeping it at detail level, so that the curated information is available to users, especially to business analysts, data analysts, data scientists, and analysts in that space, for them to kind of look at all the. I mean, there's tons of attributes when you extract information from different systems, and then build use cases using these systems, right? Using the information that you've collected at the very detailed level. And then finally, use and transform them into more consumable reporting, which is into like metrics, the predefined reports, and so create metrics and transform data in a way that can be stored in Redshift, and then can be reported directly, that can be consumed directly out of Redshift itself. Right, so that's kind of the general approach, a high-level approach that we will follow, and we will kind of go through the same process also today when we look at it. And then taking an example of what we're going to do is we are extracting, like say we talked about extracting data from different sources. So if you have employee information that you're extracting from, say, e-business suite and cloud applications, and we're taking different sets of information from different sources, combining them in the raw bucket, and then kind of taking them to the transforming that information that is there in the raw schema, and then transforming them and storing it in Redshift, right? So then finally we have the transformed information that is available for not only for direct reports and metrics in Redshift, but is also available as a data set in S3, so that so you have advanced analytical tool that can be used on top of this data set. So with this background and with this approach, I'd like to introduce Praveen, who's going to help us kind of take one of the examples that I talked about, and show data that we have kind of compiled ahead of time just for this presentation, so that you can see the data that is being used and what end result we can derive out of that. So Praveen, welcome Praveen. If you can just take over from here.
Yeah, thanks, Srinivas. Thanks. So, hello everyone. So, as Srinivas mentioned earlier, we're taking a sample subset of the use case that or problem statement. So, we're looking at the first thing that we want to really understand is just from an organization standpoint, what is my head count from a department, and are there any terminations based on historical information that I have, and look at what are the positions that I have to are open as of now, and how am I fulfilling them, right? Again, this is a sample set data set which we have aggregated at this level, and we are trying to showcase over here. But the idea is that you would actually aggregate something of this nature, maybe 10 years worth of data, so that you can start analyzing and provide meaningful insights. We also have another data set which is more of a performance rating of an employees, and or maybe employees who are at risk of leaving the organization, right? So also looking at that aspect, trying to take some measures out of it, right? So these are the two data sets which we will be utilizing in this particular session, and we'll walk you through how we are going to load this data from a Redshift standpoint, and then access it through QuickSight directly. So for that, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually already pre-connected to my Redshift instance, and I'm actually using a SQL developer as a tool. You could utilize any tool of your choice to actually load it. The first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to actually drop these tables. So the first data set that I have is a job openings data set, and the second data set that I have is more of an employee risk table, right? So these are both these tables are actually uh, um, aggregated, as I mentioned earlier. So the purpose is you create aggregate tables which has more from a KPIs or measurement standpoint, and the details you store it in a different data set, right? So that's what we are doing. So here we are just concentrated on the aggregate tables. So I just created those two tables, and now I cannot really load this data into Redshift as is, right? So there has to be some kind of mechanism. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually upload these to the S3 bucket, which is there in our AWS console. So we are going to connect. So it's already pre-connected. I'm using this tool to upload. So all I'm doing is I'm just clicking on this. It points to my local machine, identifying the file. So I'm just selecting the two files which I want to get uploaded. And you can see that this is my S3 bucket or S3 folder where the files got uploaded. Okay. So before loading the data into Redshift, let's just navigate to the files which is there. So this is the S3 bucket which we have connected, and this is the folder. And you can certainly see that I just loaded these two files, and that's the time frame that you certainly see again with the system. So we have loaded the files, and I feel comfortable with the files. Now let me start loading this data into the respective tables. So what we're doing is we're using a simple copy command to load this data, which is available in the specific folder or the bucket. And I'm using some criteria over here. Just I'm specifying the IAM role which I'm using to load, and the region that I'm loading. So I'm just loading that. So this is basically loaded around 48 records. Let me also load my employee at risk data. So it has loaded around 8 records that is there. And before doing any quick analysis from a quick site, let me I usually do some kind of an analysis, some kind of quick sanity check in the database itself, just to understand am I really getting the data or not. So I'm just looking at the count. I think it looks good. I'm looking at for a specific snapshot, I'm looking at by different departments, what is my head count. So these are the different head counts. So basically for finance, I have 19 users or 19 people currently working for the period as of 1st of July. I have 5 people working in marketing team, 14 in sales team, and 79 in manufacturing. So this looks as a good subset. So let me start quickly moving towards a quick start application. So for that, I'm already pre-connected to my AWS management console. Again, you need to connect to your own services. But here, there are two ways you can connect to QuickSight. Either you can search here in the find services, you can say QuickSight and you can connect, or there's a QuickSight under analytics where you can just click on that and it opens up, right? So I'm actually using the second approach over here just to showcase what we are doing. And the first thing that you have to do is the first time you're connecting to a QuickSight application, it would actually not directly connect to the QuickSight. Rather, you need to configure, specify what is account where the QuickSight has to be utilized, what are the users it has to import from AWS console. So things like that, some basic configurations you have to go through first before even coming over here. Because I'm already connected, I utilize this a lot. It's already pre-configured, so I'm not really showcasing that kind of a screen. But what we are going to do is now I have the data in my Redshift warehouse. I want to utilize that in the QuickSight application. So I'm going to click on this manage data on the right side. And as you can see that I already have other data sets which are available, but I'm not going to touch them because the purpose today is the data that I've loaded just a few minutes back. So I'm going to click on this new data set. And you can see that the moment I did, it shows all the different sources which the QuickSight can directly connect. So rather than loading the file from my laptop to my local system to the S3 bucket and then loading into Redshift, you can you can directly click on this upload a file, and it'll actually point you to the folder where the files are there, and you can directly start analyzing, right? That is one way to do it, but the approach that we are trying to showcase is kind of an automated, fully automated kind of a solution, where you actually build this kind of a process where you have the entire data and refreshing and everything on a regular basis in the Redshift, and you're actually doing your analysis on top of that. That's the end goal of that, right? And at the same time, you're also kind of storing the data into S3. So you're managing kind of a data lake where you have different data sets from different source systems managed. So you're solving both the purposes, but if it is a one time of an option, you can directly do those kind of activities also. And the other thing is QuickSight also can also directly connect to S3 application in case you want to do it. But the reason we are going from a Redshift in this particular case is purely from a performance standpoint, making sure utilizing the data warehousing capabilities, right? So we want to go through that. And you can definitely connect to Redshift, other databases, MySQL, SQL Server, Teradata, Snowflake, all of that, right? So I'm not going to touch anything because I know that my data resides in Redshift and my connection is already pre-configured. So I'm just going to select that and I'm going to say create dataset. So what it is doing is it is connected to my Redshift application, Redshift warehouse, and it's trying to publish all the schemas. And as you have seen earlier in my script, I've created the tables under publish schema specifically. So I'm going to select that. And I know the table that the first thing that I want to look at is my job openings table. So I'm going to just scroll down to my job openings. So this is the aggregate that I've created, job openings aggregate. I'm going to select that. And so what it is doing is it's just fetching the data. So here you can see that there are multiple options that are available. The first thing is Spice, which is more from an in-memory analysis. So if you want to do any kind of that, you go through that. Certainly there is a specific amount of space which is free on a monthly basis, and after that you need to pay based on the usage of the data set, right? So in this case, I don't want to really go through that because of the data set. It is very small. I'm not really worried about performance. I'm directly going to direct query your data. So so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to visualize my data set, how it is looking, right? So here you can see that it has just fetched the data that is available. And let me just give this name as job openings. And immediately I'll start analyzing my data, right? So the first thing that I want to look at is by different departments, I want to look at what is my headcount, right? What is my headcount by different departments? So I'm just selecting job and I'm going to select headcount. And you can see that it came across, but let me just do some checks. So you can see that here it is showing 956 employees in manufacturing department, 236 employees in finance department, and 176 in sales and 68. This is not the data set that we have seen. So what it is doing is, because the data set is captured as a snapshot of every the beginning of every month, it is kind of showing, aggregating everything and showcasing, which is not what I want. So I want to restrict for a specific date range. So I'm going to apply a filter on this snapshot. And I'm going to restrict between 1st of July to 31st of July. So now let me look at it, and now it looks at the earlier, whatever the query that we ran on the database. It looks much looking like that. So 79 in manufacturing, 19 in sales, 19 in finance, 14 in sales, and then 5. So this looks good. So I'm going to just rename this title. I'm going to say headcount by department. And let me just do a little bit of sorting, right? I want to just do by names rather than the what is higher. So I just want to go by names. So this is good data set. Let me just create the second data set, which or second visualizations that I want to go. I'm going to click on this top right corner over here and say add visual. And in this case, I want to really look at my trend, right? As we have seen earlier, right? In the explanation, I think you want to really look at your maybe you want to look at your terminations by headcount, right? Maybe you want to look at a trend between that by snapshots, right? So I'm just looking at my headcount and terminations trend over here. And you can see that there's a line graph is showing. So rather than line graph, I think just based on the data set, I feel that I might need to go towards a bar graph. So let me just change it to the bar graph so that I can see those spikes. Yeah, so this looks much more comfortable. So you can see that the headcount is almost all ups and downs. You can certainly see, and there is a termination that has happened in the early January and early March that is there. And the rest of the year is basically projection. You're assuming that there are no terminations as of now, but again, we can start looking into it. Let me change this heading slightly. So I'm going to say headcount versus terminations trend by, let me just change it to maybe month by month. And because I did that, let me just aggregate this by month. Certainly this is showing by date. So let me just change the aggregation to month over here. So it is just showing January to December. So this looks a good head start. And now let me just create something similar, but now by month, I want to really look at my open positions versus filled, right? I want to look at that. So before that, let me just, I want to fit everything into a page. So I want to really minimize this look and feel. So I'm just changing the layout slightly so that I can fit another page over here. Yeah, okay. And just looking at it, I think this legend is taking over time, over space. So I will just move that to the bottom. So let me just move that. So now I think it looks good. Let me just check it out. Yes, I think it looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a similar bar graph, but with different KPIs. So rather than again creating from scratch, let me just duplicate this. So I'm just clicking on these 3 dots against this headcount versus terminations KPI visualizations, and I'm going to say duplicate visual. So it is just creating that. So let me just drag this over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this so that I don't get confused. I'm going to say headcount with open positions versus filled. I'm going to look at the trend. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this top fields well, and in place of headcount, I'm going to change it with open positions. And in place of terminations, I'm actually changing it with filled. Right. So you can certainly see that information over here. So you have around 12 open positions earlier, and you filled 4. So until April, you were able to fill it. So here it's being carried forward, and after that, you still have some open positions. You haven't been able to place anyone, so it's basically getting carried forward. So I think this gives a good information. So high level, what we've done is we just loaded the job data, and we're by department we started looking at the head count and the terminations, things of that, right? So we started with that. Now I would really look at my employees who are at risk, right, and a specific page, right? So for that, I don't have the data set yet. So what I'm going to do is let me just go back to my home page and load that data set so that I can start analyzing. So let me just go back to the home page. And here I'm going to select this manage data. And you can see that I already have the job openings data set. I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to click on this new data set and select my Redshift, create data set, select public as the schema, and scroll bottom and directly select my employees risk, right? So employee risk aggregate. And then again, I'm going to select this direct query data, and it's just fetching the data set. So I'm saying this has employees at risk data set. So I'm not going to save and visualize, just going to click save here. So it would create the data set. So meanwhile, let me go back to the home page and edit the previous analytics. So here what we are going to do is we're going to add that the new data set we have created and append here so that we can start seeing the head counts as well as the risk in one particular page. So I'm going to click on this pencil icon near the data set and say add data set. And here you can see the top one, which we just created, employees at risk data set. And it's just loaded it. And here what we're going to do is I just want to really look at the tabular view of the data, right? Again, we can certainly do other aspects, but let me just create a tabular view, right? So for that, I'll start first with, I need the employee, or maybe I need a department first. And then I'm going to select employee. And after that, I want to look at basically maybe tenure, years of experience, risk level, performance, last promotion, gender, ethnicity, comp ratio. So except the as of date, right? Which is more kind of a snapshot. So every month you might be taking that information and making sure that it's there. So in this case, I'm just selecting everything except the as of date, and let's the visualizations come across. So it looks good. So let me just fit this slightly over here. Okay. So I'm going to name this as employees at risk as of I'm going to say 07/01/2020. Right. I'm just giving some name over here. So here, just looking at here, let me just do some kind of sorting over here. So I want the years of experience maybe a little bit down, because I want to first start with my job, family, and then employee. So as an HR manager, now I have this information that is available. I can start looking at it and take decisions, right? So it looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just publish this data set just on the dashboard so that I can start sharing with my HR managers or HR team. So I'm clicking over here, publish dashboard. I'm going to say HR analytics or analysis. Okay, and here you can start sharing just by typing names. Things will come across. Again, as I said, once you configure, it imports the data set, and then based on that, you can start typing your users and start sharing it. But I'm not going to go through that right away. But what we've done over here is we just taken some sample data sets over here, right, and then created just a view of the different data sets that are available. At the top, just logging in every day as a HR manager, I can just log in and see, okay, are there any open positions that are there which we need to fulfill and take decisions on that? Or are there any employees who are at risk and do we need to communicate with them and see what is really happening, right? And different, as Srinivas mentioned earlier, different each of these different KPIs provide a different information. So just looking at it, you can say that, okay, this particular person, just maybe looking at a marketing one, the first one, Jane Doe is she overall has 19 years of experience, and lastly she got a promotion on 1st of October, and she's been with the organization for 10 years, right? So do you want to take any decisions on that, or maybe just focus on the risk level based on the highest risk, right? You look at those things and maybe take decisions, right? So you can go through those activities and try to talk with them individually, one-on-one, do those kind of analysis. And certainly we can, if you want to look at different graphs and stuff, we can also do that. But again, we are trying to just take a specific use case, give you a direction, and then take it to the next level where you can start analyzing the same data set um, by looking at the trends of multiple years and taking valuable insights and then changing your approach on that. So in this way, I think we have taken a use case and we have just took it a high level solution. We're not specifying that this broadens everything, but let me just show a sample dashboard which we have created similarly with the HR data, right? So you can see here we have created something called people analysis over here, and here what we have done is you can see employees by region. If you're working around the globe, you want to look at the total number of employees broken down. You want to look at the hiring that's happening between different regions, looking at the business function, gender diversity, separation, and looking at all of those things, right? So each KPIs has a different purpose over here, but it is just giving a glimpse as to you are starting as a manager or as a recruiting manager or a HR manager. You're just coming in over here, trying to look at and take decisions or make unnecessary adjustments as an organization. That's it. Srinivas, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Praveen, for for kind of going through that. Let me share my screen. So that was a good demo, walking through the use cases that we've discussed. So I'd like to invite Audrey to talk about the next steps.
Okay, thanks, Srinivas. All right, so in terms of the series itself, this is really built with you in mind. And part of that has been the ability to showcase different aspects of the business, and then how we, like Praveen demonstrated, are able to take that and to put it into a place of visualization where the data meets the key business initiative. And so from that perspective, we've created a plan to help you to do similarly with your own data. And so the process, and here you'll see the 1, 2, 3. I mean, 1, just start with what exists. How are other customers doing it? What are the types of data that they're looking to extract, and then to leverage a tool such as Redshift to then embark on. And we have a seller team that biased, but truly, between Srinivas, Praveen, and the rest of our organization, engage us, find ways to get started in terms of finding a subset of data or finding a POC that we can build around, and begin the experimentation process. If anything else, we don't know what we don't know until we learn it. And so that's what I would encourage you to do from a next step standpoint. Reach out to myself. My contact information is included for the duration of the series. So you'll be able to see that listed under Audrey Eloquin. And apart from that, if you reach out to even our general support, we'll be able to find the right team to get you started. And in light of that, well, I'm going to toggle over to the chat window to see how things have shaken out for the series and if there are any questions. And in light of that, it looks like, Srinivas, there's one directed to you initially. So I'm going to ask you the following. How is HR analytics changing, and what is your approach?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, HR analytics has evolved significantly over the years, and in the recruitment space especially, there's a lot of automation, a lot of different tools that have come up that have been able to parse resumes, have been able to identify quick fits that can kind of help recruiters. But there are a lot of different other areas which I mentioned, which is whether it is forecasting employee terminations or turnover, helping recruiters in the hiring process. There are other things that, that needs to be included also. And the third part is also helping organizations with retaining employees. Now, in order to achieve this, I think it's not just. I mean, we have to consider the entire data set that the organization has and identify what has worked for the organization before, and not just look at the current data set, current set of employees and their ratings to identify, but also look for historical information, like it could be like 20 years back, and apply patterns and algorithms to it to identify what is it really that can be kind of extracted out of that information, and then be useful not only for the current set but also for the future. I think that's a trend that we think we're going to see more and more, where this information will be helpful for HR, especially HR managers going forward.
Okay, thank you. It's very helpful. And not to be unfair to you, Praveen, I do have one more. So the question is, what tools in AWS would you use for advanced analytics?
So for advanced analytics, definitely we'll be using SageMaker, which is kind of a fully managed platform that enables the data scientists to actually quickly and easily build the models, train models, and create of that, right? So that definitely will be the starting point. So as Srinivas has shown in the I think in the diagram earlier, from an approach standpoint, there has been we have utilized that SageMaker. So you would certainly have data. SageMaker is just more from an AI and ML standpoint, but I think the important aspect from any machine learning aspect would be is having proper data set, and that's how you manage that and how cleansed your data set is. Otherwise, if you look at the trend, majority of the most of the time that the data scientists spend around 70% of their time in cleansing the data set, so which is not what we really wanted. So that's where you actually try to make sure you have a right process where you have proper data available in S3, managed over there, kind of a data lake where you go through those layers, cleanse your data sets, and give your data scientists or the developers the right kind of data so that they can start training and evolving or building models on top of that. So I think it's a good kind of a combination that we would utilize.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you both. That'll conclude our questions for the day. So in light of that, to recap, we hope you learned how data warehousing can help you to unlock further your Oracle HR data. And so next week, we'll look a little bit differently in the sense that we'll take a more hands-on approach in the form of a workshop. So for those registered for the event, we will send out more specific instructions if needed to prepare you for that session. And otherwise, we hope that you've had a very fruitful journey alongside us towards modern BI. And next week will be our last week. So do tune in. I know that it'll be a bit hands-on, and we look forward to seeing you there. Otherwise, stay well, and we'll see you in a week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.